Our next step is to start the subfloor, and our subfloor is a Warmboard subfloor. If you're not familiar with Warmboard, it's 1 1/8 inch plywood subfloor with an aluminum coating on the top, or an aluminum sheet metal stuck to it. Grooves are all over it, and you snap your radiant tubing into those grooves. Basically, the aluminum helps radiate the heat uniformly across the surface of your floor, and the grooves facilitate your tubing. With 1 1/8 thick, it's a pretty darn sturdy floor. This is an exceptionally simple space. We provided them with a floor plan. They provided us with a layout. So the panels come in different orientations: left, right, straight on, and then some half left, half right panels. We need to trim the ends here because it's not quite 24 foot, it's only 23 foot across. And we need to trim the panels on the edges there, just because, you know, clearly it's not a complete panel there. The subfloor uses tongue and groove to connect together through the gaps on the joists. So this is your tongue side, and that's obviously your groove side. For the first set of panels up here, the tongue is going to go against the west wall of the barn, and thus the tongue is not necessary. So I'm going to take a circular saw, come along the edge, and just cut this tongue off. We're on our third panel here, and the first two went exceptionally well. As with the sheathing for the exterior, we did 6-inch around the sides and 12-inch spacing on the secondary members, or the center areas. Let me give you an example of what that looks like. 6-inch spacing on the edges, 12-inch spacing on the centers. We're putting it about 1/8 inch between the panels on the 4-foot edge. The 8 foot is a tongue and groove, so that'll be pounded together very tightly. We already put a string line and marked all the eye joists where this first row of panels go. But Warmboard also provides these dowels that you can place between the panels to make sure all the channels are lined up perfectly. They slide in really nicely. It shows needing to hammer them in, but just hand is all that's needed for our panels. We're using 2.5-inch construction screws. The panels call for 2 3/4, but 2 3/4 would be sticking out of the bottom of the eye joist there. So we backed it off by 1/4 just so the entire screw is inside the subfloor and eye joists. You want all the threads of the screw inside wood, so that's why we made that choice. We're using Subfloor Adhesive. It's basically just a construction adhesive, but labeled for subfloor. And we're putting that on first before we drop the panels in place. Finally, we're driving all of our T20 screws with a combination of a 3/8 inch impact driver and a compact impact driver. They're both more than adequate for the task. So we're done with the subfloor. It went pretty darn smooth. No issues whatsoever in the whole installation. Glue on the eye joists, screws everywhere. The tongue and groove fit together really nicely. Had nice straight lines all the way across. It's got a little echo when you walk on it. Of course, that'll quiet down once it's insulated and covered with actual floor. On the end here, we decided to leave a little lip. This is where the stairs are going to be going down. And we figured the first tread on the stairs could be the subfloor. Why not? It'll help tie the stairs to the floor, make it all kind of one thing. So yeah, that's what we did. With the subfloor complete on the loft, our next step is to build the staircase. The staircase is going to go up this side of the wall and meet up right where that subfloor is overhanging as our first step. We follow the two rules for the stairs. The first rule is that the sum of the rise and the run equals 18. The second rule is that 2 times the rise plus the run equals 28. It's a long stringer. The stringer is 14.5 feet or so long. And the staircase is 38 inches wide. We bought LVLs, nearly 12 inch. So it's 11.75 inch wide. We're using 2 types of steps, basically using cast-offs from other things. The first step is Warmboard cast-off. That's 1 1/8" subfloor. The second, we have 3 big LVL chunks here that are 1 3/4" each. We're going to use the LVLs for the 3 bottom steps and use the Warmboard for the rest. So I spent the better part of the morning marking out this stringer, and I just finished cutting it. We simply used a framing square and then stair gauges, which lock onto the square, and you just basically slide it down and draw out the lines. Just to make sure we had our spacing right, I did some solid measurements at the 1/2 point and 1/4 points for this step. You know, when you do iterative sort of measurements, the error just compounds, right? So having calibrations here and there throughout the measurement process is a nice way to make sure you don't get too far off. So we're going to trace it onto the next LVL and then cut that one out. It's a pain in the butt and it's a lot of cuts, but let's get it done. The stringers are going together pretty well here. We've got the sill plate for it. Sill plate? I don't know. Whatever that's called that makes contact with the concrete. That's in place. We put a little glue under it just to hopefully prevent squeaking and to level it out. But the stringers are in the rough position. And this was a positive sign yesterday. I threw a level up on a random step and it makes nice contact with all three sides. More importantly, it is level. So looks like our dry fit is really good. These brackets, although sufficient for steps, aren't the most inspiring thing. I'd feel better with 1 or 2 lags in addition to the bracket to hold it all together. We were in the middle of installing these steps using these brackets. They're basically called stringer hangers, and they take a lot of screws, but they're, you know, structurally sound. We hated them. We just really didn't like the whole feel and how it was coming together. So we abandoned these brackets and did something that we're a lot more comfortable with. We went and got some big legs. So these are 5-inch legs. They go pretty much to the bottom of the sill plate. We get a little countersinking there just to simplify anything. We pre-drilled their 3/8 inch legs. So we got a 3/8 inch auger bit and pre-drilled them all. And then I just bore out enough to countersink. No big deal, really. And man, these pull so nice and tight. It's exactly what we want. I mean, this thing is rock solid. Up top, we did the exact same thing, but with 3/8 inch, 10-inch long legs. Again, just counter sunk a little bit. It pulled it so nice and tight. We smoothed out the glue that's weeped out and then came up and attached the step on top. So yeah, I'm happy with the leg approach. The brackets just, I mean, look at the gap the brackets make, and they're hard to get into position, and it's just, ugh. Nifty. We have some functional steps. This obviously isn't complete. We'll be fully enclosing these at some point, including a wall along this side that goes up and becomes a guardrail. So there's still a lot to do, but these are completely functional and will let us get up and down without any drama. There's a bit of a different, like, toe feel, I don't know, foot feel, when you walk on these LVL steps and transition to the Warmboard. It might just be an audible change. They all feel very, very solid. It's all glued and screwed so tightly. Everything is level. Everything is consistent. We like it. It's a little strange using Warmboard for this, but you know, we couldn't just let 1 1/8 subfloor go to waste, and we have no other immediate uses for it. So we're going to be using luxury vinyl plank on these eventually. And they have an integrated nose here for the end of the step that protrudes like 1 inch out. So depending on the rigidity of that step, we may end up sticking an old piece of PEX in here just to fill that area in, but it's probably not necessary. But overall, I feel good because we were able to reuse a lot of materials. Obviously, the LVLs were really expensive, $120 a piece times 3. The legs were pretty expensive, but legs are awesome versus brackets, so we're happy with that. It ain't going nowhere, especially once we built the wall next to it, which will give it another anchor point down to the concrete, but man, it ain't going nowhere. We're happy.